Hey comrades, what's up? Here for chapter 2, Identification of Nikke, Goddess of Victory. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and here we go. So now we're on the surface again, and we find out this is the first time Neon has been to the surface, and she's very excited. But Ainz tells her to simmer down because she'll get over it real quick, because you're constantly in the edge of death, and things are sketchy as fuck out here. Anyways, Shifty comes in at this point and tells us that the objective of this investigation that we're being sent on is to find the control room of a power station and find out why the power station is still producing power. And if we can, to take it over, because it will provide enough energy for the arc for about 2 months, which is a long time, I guess. She then mentions alpha particles for the first time, and she mentions that these alpha particles make it, we don't really get an explanation right now. But she's doing a scan, and she has to wait for the alpha particles to go down. She then identifies that there's a mag rail line that if we follow it, it'll get us to the power station. Unfortunately, it's still active, and if we step on it, we will die. We brag about being like, we'll be fine. And then Rappy's like, no. And asks about this city. Apparently, this city was sealed off about 5 years ago after raptures kind of invaded inside of it. And so what we find out is that this is another one of these kind of not... it's sort of attached to the arc on some level. It's one of these reclamation areas that they tried to put together on the surface. So the first order of business, because we need to follow the mag line, we need the power off, is to cut off that power. So as we're heading along, Neon shouts out, and Ainz and Rappy immediately get ready for combat. But there's no rapture, so Ainz scolds Neon and lets her know that, hey, up here on the surface, you got to be careful. Like, only yell out if there's raptures. Like, stop being fucking crazy. Anyway, the reason Neon cried out is that she came up with a great idea, and that great idea is for the commander to wear rubber boots so he can travel along the line. Everyone just kind of stares at her blankly, and then Shifty shuts the idea down. She's like, absolutely not. Eventually, we reach the command station, and Rappy asks us for something to shut the power off. Like, I can't remember exactly what she says, but she mentions, oh, hey, we need that adapter or whatever so that we can do this. And we're like, what are you talking about? I have no idea. And then apparently it's a part of our cell phone that will like come out and has like a meter-long tether. It's almost like a USB port that we can plug in, and that'll let us control technology on the surface, or artifact technology. Shifty informs us about all this information and tells us to plug it in. And once we do, we're able to shut the power off and continue on our way. At some point, Ainz also criticizes us for being dumb. But as we remember from some of the Bond missions, the commander, us, we really have very little memory of what's going on. Like, there was definitely some sort of amnesia situation going on. Later on, after a couple battles, Ainz and Neon are having a discussion about the amount of firepower Neon's using and how it's kind of ridiculous, but how firepower will solve all problems. Upon reaching the power station, we learn that it's been reactivated a while ago, in fact, but no one knows why or how. And the reason we're sent to investigate is because all of a sudden the ARC's registering that this power station has been reactivated. And so that's the point, is to figure out like what happened. Are there civilians being on here? Because, we talk about that, and Shifty reaffirms that the ARC policy is that 0 people live on the surface. And this is where we learn that this power station is a big deal because it can power the ARC for over 2 months. What we find is that the place is full of raptures. And it seems that the only way to get access to the building is to burst our way in. Ainz starts complaining about how the ARC just sent the three of you, or sent the counters, Neon, Ainz, and Rappy, to go, and that they should have sent a whole force if this was such a big fucking deal, and how important this really is. And then Rappy and Ainz get into a disagreement, Rappy being like, by the book, and shouldn't question things and just follow orders, and Ainz being like, no, I don't give a fuck about following orders. I'm tired of this shit where, like, if this is such a big deal, like, why do you send a force out here that can't do it? And you're always giving us, like, this weird shit. And after their little spat, they turn to us like, Commander, what are we going to do? And we decide we're going to sneak in instead. And they're all like, what? Because normally commanders are just like, you Nickies are just weapons. Go fucking kill these things and I'll wait here. And we're like, no, we're not going to do that. So Shifty finds us a way to sneak in through a drain pipe. And gross. Wah, wah. Ainz is not a big fan of this idea. And as we get to the drain pipe, Neon checks it out. It's like, man, there's too much debris to get through. And Ainz is like, well, whatever, let's just dig it out, and then we can go from there. At that point, Neon volunteers to use firepower to clear it all out. And Shifty checks to make sure there's no raptures nearby, so that the use of firepower, this like the loud noises, the gunfire, that stuff isn't going to draw like a battle battalion of raptors our way. part of the reason Neon's really despondent at this point, right? She's like, oh, there's too much debris, there's nothing we can do. And part of the reason she's like, I will do it, is because we say, hey, we got this. We'll just blow our way through it. It'll be great. And that point, Neon volunteers for the firepower. And this, if you listen to the video from last week, that you learn that this firepower, that's like her thing. She just wants to have the massive amount of firepower and blow everything up, and that's like part of her core identity, if you will. And so after she clears it, she's super excited, and she thanks us for reminding us what's important about her existence and the meaning for life, and that is for firepower. At this point, it's time for butts. Seriously though, we're crawling on our hands and knees through this drainage pipe, and we get a shot here of just Rappy, Neon, and Ein's butts, and we're crawling behind them, and it stinks. It's terrible to smell here because it's a drainage pipe, and there's some complaints, obviously, because like, why does it smell so bad? Humans haven't lived here forever, but the drainage pipes are carrying a lot more stuff than just like fecal matter and whatnot. But Neon's really like, oh my gosh, I can't stand this. This is so awful. It's the worst thing I've ever smelled. And Ainz is like, just cut off your olfactory circuit so you don't have to smell anything. And Neon's like, no, it makes me feel less human if I can't smell. She's like, stop complaining then. We get another discussion here about commanders just treating Nikke's like weapons, and how us as the commander is like, we're very unusual, and that they kind of appreciate it at this point, but not like super appreciate it yet. Suddenly Rappy halts, and then everyone stops all of a sudden, and we end up with our face in Ain's booty. She freaks out. It's like, get off me. What are you doing? But Nikke, the reason Rappy stopped is because we've arrived. So we all climb out of the drainage pipe, and we're looking around, and we see that the Raptures are not just inhabiting this power station, that they're operating it. They're maintaining it. They're conducting repairs, and that they're using it somehow. And the counters are all like aghast. They're like, no, I've never seen anything like this. This is crazy. Shifty steps in at this point and also comments out like, yeah, I've checked all the files, and there's never been anything like this observed, where the Raptures are like running ancient technology. At that point, Rappy, who's very concerned, concludes that the investigation is over and that we should get out of here. At that point, we get noticed, and a battle begins. During the battle, Rappy loses her head, like literally, her head comes off. And we're able, and then Shifty also detects that there's a Tyrant class Rapture approaching. So Ainz is like, we can't fight this with just the two of us. We got to get Rappy's head and get the fuck out of here. So she demands a escape route from Shifty, who gives it to us, and we get the fuck out of there. After we're able to escape from the Raptures and we're on our way out, we're just really shook. We're not saying anything, not giving commands, just kind of looking off in the distance. And Ainz is like, hey, wake the fuck up. What is going on? And Neon's carrying Rappy's head at this point. When we don't respond to Ainz yelling at us, she slaps us to wake us up. And it's like, hey, you got to give us some fucking orders. Quit with this bullshit. And we're like, yeah. Let's go. Let's escape. We got it. And Ainz like, thank God. Holy shit. I'm going to die out here because of this motherfucker. At that point, Neon's like, hey, you got to carry Rappy's head so me and Ainz can fight our way out of here just in case. And as we take the head, it's noted that the commander mentions that this head is much heavier than he thought it would be. Later on, we can make it back to the Ark, and we're getting screamed at by Anderson because during our escape, we destroyed the power plant to a point where it can't be used anymore, which is a loss of 2 months worth of energy. And so because of that, we're being banished. We're being sent to the outpost. The outpost is on the edge, the outskirts of the Ark, and it's a barren wasteland where there's like half-built construction and some barracks and stuff, and it's like a defensive area. And we are ordered that we shall go there and we shall not return. And then before we're kicked out of there, we ask about Rappy, and we find out that she's under repair and she'll be sent when she's ready. After we leave, Ingrid shows up, and they have a meeting. They talk about the field combat data because if you remember back in chapter 1, when we did the simulation data, it seemed like we were just told trash. Like, how could we fight a Tyrant class and win? And the field combat data it's like, well, maybe in the field they'll be better. And the field data is just as bad, not worse. As in, we are not a good squad. I'm not a good commander, and these are not good Nikkes. So they're just like confused about like, well, I don't understand. They talk about the escapades and how we got through it all and the sneaking around and all that stuff. And Ingrid agrees that like none of this data makes any sense. It's not matching up with like reality at all. They then talk about how the real reason we're being sent to the outpost is because there's a lot of confusion between like us as a commander and this squad, the counters, and how we operate together, and that there's definitely something more going on there, but he wants more time to kind of investigate without the interference of the central government being in our business. So we're actually not being banished. We're being like, quote unquote, banished. But in reality, we're being sent to kind of keep us out of the eye of the all-seeing government. At that point, they start talking about the raptures operating human technology. And Ingrid and Anderson discuss that the raptures may be evolving, and that why would they be evolving? What are they trying to do? And then Ingrid mentions that either they're here to wipe out all of mankind or they're here to replace us. Later on at the outpost, Ainz, Neon, and the commander, they're very like nonplussed about the whole situation. Like, man, this place looks like shit. There's nothing here. What can we do? And then Neon starts firing off her gun into the air. It's like, no, you know what? I love this shit. I can fire off as much as I want, be as crazy as I want. Where Ainz and the commander are like, yeah, I guess so. That works. So the girls inquire about where they're supposed to stay, and so we head to the dormitory, and it's shit. It's like a Nikke dormitory. And as we know, the Nikkes don't need anything to exist, right, besides just keeping their mental facility straight. So there's no bathroom. They have almost expired food. They're all like jammed in like the same room, and then there's no bathroom. And then when Neon goes to check it out, there's also no water. It's like, holy shit. And so the Neon gets very concerned about our living arrangements, because like, wow, if it's bad here, it might be super bad over there too. And so we take him over. And so the conversation turns to, are you staying with us here with the Nikkes? And I'm like, I don't know. That sounds good to me. And they're like, no. We need, we need some space. You can't just be in here with us. You never know what's going to happen. And then we, the whole thing was a joke because we tell them, oh no, we have our own quarters. And so they head over there with us, and it's massive. It's like twice the size, or it's way bigger than their shared space. It's got nice furnishings. So it's a working bathroom with working water. And Ainz is like, holy shit, we should switch. At that point, Rappy shows up, right as rain. And she points out, she starts trying to talk to us, but then she's like, oh my God, you guys stink. And Ainz and Neon are like, oh yeah, we turned off our olfactory stuff. We must smell. So at that point, Neon's like, I'm going to go take a shower. So she heads over there. And because the Nikkes are getting indecent to get naked to take showers, Rappy sends us outside. As we head outside, she follows us. And then she gets onto us about the Nikkes not being human, that they're weapons, that the way we treat them is not like necessarily acceptable. And then she says something about us looking at her, and she mentions that it's common for Nikkes who are severely damaged to look different when they come back. And in my head, I'm like, you have the exact same model. Are you supposed to be looking different? So I don't understand. Seems like just bad translation. Anyway, I probably what she's trying to say is that often happens, but that didn't happen with her. And we're having discussion about it. My assumption would be if I got the actual Korean or the Japanese translation, it would say something along the lines of, I know I should look different, but I don't, because most Nikkes are usually look drastically different when they've had severe damage done to them, because that just makes more sense. Anyway, she asks how we view Nikkes, and we say that you can put human or monster. I put human. I view them as humans. And she thanks us for showing them dignity, but then she mentions we should get to bed. Later, after showering and getting ready for bed, we get a text from Anderson. He mentions that the Ark has no jurisdiction over the outpost, so we can do whatever the fuck we want. And they'll give us some space to get close to our Nikkes, which is not common and could be very helpful for us. The next day, Rappy comes and wakes us up because we have visitors, and it's, I think you pronounce it Sayun, the CEO of Missilis. She is an arrogant little asshole bitch. She starts making demands, and then we ignore her and start asking about Marion and being corrupt, how she was corrupt in the Ark, and if she knows anything or has done anything about it or done any research. At that point, she gets tired of dealing with us and calls Uni. Uni is a member of Wardress, and she tells Uni to put us to our knees. So Uni does. She does some sort of attack or something, and we immediately lose all ability to stand and fall to our knees. She then steps on us and then stamps on us a little bit, which causes the counters to pull out their guns and tell her to stop. At that point, Sayun calls Mihara, who does something, causes like a blue flash, and then Sayun pulls out a gun and shoots Mihara in the gut. And all the Nikkes, Ainz, Rappy, and Neon feel the pain instead. They're like, oh, and she keeps shooting. And so the Nikkes have to stop. They have to drop their guns essentially because they're doubling over in so much pain. Sayun explains that Mihara's, one of her abilities is to switch her feelings, what she feels, to other people. She then continues to shoot like a psychotic bitch she is. Sayun tells us that we are going to follow Wardress, which again is Mihara and Uni, to the surface. Once we're there, we have 2 days to capture a rapture for her. At that point, we tell her to go fuck herself, and she lets us know that she's the CEO of the Big Three, which makes her essentially a government force upon herself, and that she has as much sway as some of the central government leaders. And she gets whatever she wants. So if she wants us to get the electric chair, it's going to happen. She starts to walk away, and we demand she apologizes. Seiyun then has Mihara switch her feelings over to us, and then she shoots her in the gut again, causing us to feel like we're getting shot. And we're only humans, so we can't take it as well. And she continues to shoot Mihara as we crawl over to her and then climb up and grab her by the collar and demand that she apologize again. Right before we can grab onto her, she demands that she orders Mihara to shoot us. But Mihara's like, no, Nikke's can't shoot humans. What are you talking about, you crazy bitch? After we grab her collar and demand another apology, she's about to apologize, as in like in the middle of like, all right, fine, I am, and then we pass out from the pain. And she's like, oh, good. And she scoots on out of there. We wake up a short time later with Neon and Ains trying to like get us, helping us out. And at that point, Rappy turns to Wardress and asks about what this fucking mission is and who this rapture is and whatnot. And Mihara refuses to say anything until we get to the surface. And then she says something. She kind of hints at, again, how kind of psychotic Seiyun is. Because as we're heading out, she says, we have to find this rapture in 2 days. And then, quote, we have no idea what, speaking of Seiyun, she might do if we're late. like, ... And that's the end of chapter 2. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will catch you guys later.